but they're still sprinting because they feel like I got to get out of student loan debt. I got to buy a house. I got to prepare for college. I have to do all these things.
Yeah.
And so they don't have a moment to rest. That's what they feel like. But the reality is, if you can get rid of this idea that you want to live on a beach someday, which is just, it's not even a good fantasy.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And what better way to do that than to speak to people who do financial planning? That's why I'm really excited that Nate Reineke is with us today. He is a Eugene, Oregon native and a certified financial planner, and he is deeply rooted in financial expertise. He was raised by a financial advisor, father, and a teacher mother, and he earned an economics degree from the University of Oregon, which is not Oregon, if you didn't know that. Upon joining Physician Family in 2015, and as an investment advisor representative, Nate transitioned from the corporate world to make a meaningful impact on individual lives, particularly in helping them overcome debt, and seamlessly combines personal and professional passions to shape financial well-being. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Christine, you have the honor of talking to a guy who has recorded over 240 episodes on a podcast and also has written a book called Empower Your Inner Millionaire. Oh, wait.
Are you talking about me?
That's
I thought you
me.
were talking about
I
you.
have the honor. I was like excited. I was like, oh my gosh, 240 episodes. Because sometimes, but people who don't have a podcast, they don't think about this, but you're like nervous. Like, is my podcast going to be okay? And then I try to hype myself up. I'm like, you only need 4 episodes to be in the top 10% of podcasts. It's okay. And then I saw yours. I'm like, 240 episodes. That's incredible. And a book.
Yeah, and a book. Yeah, but I'm here to talk to you.
Oh, okay.
Not the other way around.
Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome. So.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, doing doing a podcast, as you know, because you've got a podcast, it's a commitment. It's definitely a commitment. And yours is more difficult than mine because you don't get to just ask one question and let the person run with it. You have to do all the talking. So since we're talking about podcasts, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah. So it's a very clever name, Physician Family Financial Advisors Podcast. We've been told by
How'd you come up with that? My God.
We have been told at least a few times by some very smart people to change that name, and we have just said no. So so yeah, but no, it's been good. We've been doing it for couple years now. Unfortunately, unlike you, I believe it was during COVID, but that wasn't why, okay? It wasn't like we were locked in our rooms because we were already locked in our rooms. We all work from home, and work life didn't change much for me during COVID. You did before all that. So, but yeah, it's basically we get tons of questions. We serve close to 200 families. And when you look out there at a lot of financial advice podcasts, they're kind of in the details a lot. They're telling you how to do everything, and sometimes they miss the why. Now, the how is table stakes. It's very important. But when we kind of were recording episodes, we found ourselves talking about why a lot. And so what we do is we answer questions that our whole team gets throughout the week. And usually it's 5 or 6, and we record once a week now. And we talk about, the how, and then we tend to get into the why. Why are we doing all this? Why are we saving all this money? Why do we care about taxes? All that stuff.
So before I ask you more questions about that, I just had these couple of ideas for the name of your podcast.
Okay.
You focus on physicians, so I was thinking you could call it either Money Doctor or Doctor Money, which would be kind of fun and catchy. But anyway,
that would be cool. Yeah, we've had some really good ones, and I'm like, ooh, that's actually pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't know. We try to it's on brand is all I can say.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So the why, to get back to what you were saying, is so important because, okay, anybody really can just, it's hard, right? Sometimes it's hard work to
Yeah.
actually put that money aside and, stay on your budget and do whatever. And it's, if you don't understand why you're doing it, if you don't have that big picture, if you don't have that vision of the life that you're going to have once you start being able to spend all this money, then I think it's extremely difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, you know, so when I went to school for this. My dad was a financial advisor. We would look at stock returns in our spare time. I loved this from the beginning, and you know, I went to school for economics, got out, went straight to the bank. I was like, I'm going to be a financial advisor, and then when I got there, it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was like a whole lot of sales and stuff that I didn't really believe in. So I was a short timer. I left. I went to this big company. And I thought, well, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be, which was incredibly disappointing because my whole life I thought I was going to do that. And what I found out from my dad, um, he didn't tell me this as a kid, but he kind of just did whatever he wanted. He was like he kind of like broke the rules of the bank. He's like, I'm not going to sell that stuff. I'm going to do whatever I want. But when you're 22, you can't just do whatever you want at a big bank. So I just left, and then I found this firm, which was charging in a very honest way. It's just a flat monthly fee. And I thought, well, they probably don't care what I want to recommend. And then, so I got in touch with the owner, and he's like, "Well, these physicians are really struggling with their student loans." I'm like, "Debt? I hate debt. Let's try to help them get out of student loan debt." And so when I came here, I thought, "All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell everybody how to do this. I'm going to tell them how to make a bunch of money." And then when I got here, I realized physicians already make a bunch of money. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to tell them how to invest. And they're like, a lot of them, they're pretty smart. They kind of know how to invest. And so I was really lucky that I knew my why, and I knew why I wanted to make money. I knew how much money I wanted to make, and I knew how much life I had to give up in order to get it. And then I knew I didn't want to give up more life beyond that. And I realized physicians didn't know anything about that. They see this huge opportunity out there in front of them to make a lot of money. They can work more hours and just rake it in. And the question that I found myself talking about or answering is, but what's it for? Like, why do you want to make 1 million instead of 800,000, or 800,000 instead of 600,000? What's going on? And then over the years, I find myself like, yeah, the how is incredibly important. You should protect your money the best you can from taxes. You should get as big of returns as you can get while still being responsible with your investing. But that's again, that's table stakes, and beyond that is like, well, what are you going to do with it? Like, why are you doing this? So it is, and that is actually the hard work.
It's true. And the other part of that is how much is too much, right? I know a
Hmm.
lot of people who continue to save and save and save beyond what they would actually need to retire because they just don't have that confidence level. And that they probably are working 10 more years than they need to
Hmm.
because they just don't have that really firm understanding of what it is they're going to need, how much they're going to actually need once they stop working.
You know, with older physicians, like ones that could retire, and but they, to be honest, at least the ones we work with, a lot of physicians love being physicians.
Yeah.
That's why they did it. I mean, if they really wanted to make money, they would be investors, or they don't really value their time like they should.
Yeah.
They because they're trading hours for money. But that's okay if you love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so older physicians, they should probably retire, right? They haven't found their why yet, and the problem is they worked so hard they don't know what to do with themselves, and so
Right.
that's a whole nother conversation. But what I'm actually seeing now, physicians in their 30s and 40s, is they have grabbed onto not Phil, but they have grabbed onto fire like crazy, and so
Yeah.
they want to retire when they're 50. And I just I have yet to find someone that can articulate a reason why that would be a good idea. I
It's so funny you say that. I talk to people who are like they're 26 years old and they're like,
uh
yeah, I did this, that, and the other thing, and now I'm retired. And I thought, my God, what are you going to do for the next 80 years?
what?
Seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
retiring, to me, it just means that you don't have to work for a pay. You don't have to
Yes.
care how much you're getting paid. It
Yeah.
certainly doesn't mean you're just going to play golf for the rest of your life because personally, I would shoot myself.
Of
It would be
course.
so mind-numbingly
Yeah.
boring, right?
Well,
It's just,
work brings purpose. I mean, there's
yeah,
some level of purpose that work brings, and there's other things too, but it's part of the equation.
yeah,
Um, and the hard part is that when you're that age, you haven't even had the time to find out what you like doing.
right,
And so the beautiful thing about what you just said is that you don't have to care about how much you make. For physicians,
right,
it's hard not to make a couple $100,000 a year. And so, what can you do? You can not play politics anymore if you're
right.
financially free. Because if you're in these big hospitals, like there's a lot of politics to be played, but you can do locum tenens and you can find a job that pays less, but the people there are great. I mean, that is something to work toward. And more and more as I work with younger physicians, um, if I can encourage them to plan to work less, maybe when they're 50, but to continue to work, it opens up so many doors. They might even be able to change jobs now because they're not in this race to have millions of dollars by the time they're 50 and
Right.
kind of live on crumbs. Because when you're 50 and you got 30 years left, uh, until 30 or 40 years left to spend your money, um, you have to be very careful with what you're spending, how you're investing, and you sort of cut yourself off at the knees with how much or what you're investing in and how much you can spend.
And that's liberating just in itself,
Hmm.
right? Just that knowledge, like knowledge is power. That's the kind of knowledge that really allows you to be like, it can blow their mind, right? I bet when you say that to them, like, oh, you know what? You already have enough that where you can just continue to do what you're doing anywhere you want. You can
Hmm.
go spend 10 years with Physicians Without Borders. You can go
Yes.
start your own clinic and just, do exactly what you want and be your own boss or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you
Right.
no longer have to take the next time someone says something to you that sounds that's a pain in the neck, you just tell them
Yeah.
forget it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and a big thing, most of the physicians, right, in our name, physician family, most of the physicians we serve have kids. And you know, in the hard part about watching physicians with kids that are also trying to retire early is like, why did you have kids if you're not going to just pour a lot of your love and soul into them? Like,
Right.
and so it's strange because, being a dad um, kind of comes easily to me. I mean, there's always the struggles and everything, but like, I want to spend time with my kids. And so do they, but they feel this huge responsibility to somehow pile up all this money. And I believe that comes from a lot of the physicians we serve. There's a lot that came from, their parents were doctors, so they became doctors. Many
Yeah.
of them grew up like lower middle class, and this was their way out. It's one of those jobs where you can get it through education
Yeah.
and you can still be sort of an inside the box thinker and make a lot of money. Um, and so when they get there, they see this huge opportunity. But the thing is, that opportunity, people who have money and are doing it the right way, in my opinion, they're using that opportunity for more than just building up numbers in a bank account. They are using
Exactly.
it to live the life that they dreamed of. And the problem, it's sad but true. Um, Lower middle class people, they don't have the luxury to think about the life they want to live. They got to go to work. You know what, physician, you do have the luxury. You worked really hard for it, but you have that option and you should take it. You really should
And it's
take it.
because that there's insecurity that goes along with that, right? You grew
Hmm.
up with not quite enough money, or money was always a topic that, it was not like, oh yeah, we've got all we want, so just go do whatever you want. That
Yeah,
not too many families are saying that to their kids, to be
right.
fair. But and as you were saying before about student loan debt, I mean, I'm a real estate agent, right? I help people buy houses, and it's not unusual for me to be working with a physician who's got $250,000 in student loan debt.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And
You
it's a
know,
crappy way to start off your life.
it's again, um, becoming a doctor, obviously it brings security, but it's generally not the best way to get rich.
Yeah.
You have to, and it's getting worse and worse because you have all these student loans. You have that, and if you did come from that lower middle class, your parents didn't pay for school, and it, it's more and more competitive, so it's hard to get scholarships, all that. Um, so we, when you have $250,000, which you say that as if it's like worst case,
I know it's
it
not.
is
Yeah.
very common.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had people with 500,000, and I'm like, whoa, what school did you go to? And they make the same amount as all the other people in their specialty and all that. But once again, they feel like the clock is ticking. Um, Again, we have most of the physicians we serve, they have families, so they had children at a later age. They have 250 to $350,000 in student loans. They've been moving around the country, so they don't have a house.
Right.
They all these things working against them to finally, when they're in their mid 30s, they're like, okay, I'm still. They don't know how not to sprint, first of all,
Right.
but they're still sprinting because they feel like I got to get out of student loan debt. I got to buy a house. I got to prepare for college. I have to do all these things.
Yeah.
And so they don't have a moment to rest. And that's what they feel like. But the reality is, if you can get rid of this idea that you want to live on a beach someday, which is just, it's not even a good fantasy. Like they don't actually want this. They just are told that this is what you should go get if you can make enough money. But if you can just slow down and realize, the money will come. And this is for physicians. This isn't for everybody. They have a crazy opportunity here that they have a secure job. Who has a job that
Right.
makes 500 that you have to be an entrepreneur, an investor in any other realm of the world, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer?
Yeah.
And so they have a secure job where they can, as long, just find a job that you like, and you can take this slowly. Um, and you can easily do this if you take that approach rather than freaking out every day like your hair's on fire to get out of student loan debt and buy a house, do everything all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even want to talk about student loan debt because it's just so pervasive and horrible. But
Hmm.
you talked, we've kind of touched on this a little bit where, this idea of being able to define what you want your life to look like.
Hmm.
How do you help people to come to that? How do you help people to get their arms around that vision when really all they feel like they're doing is treading water or just, trying to really race to get ahead?
Yeah. You know, um, it's a paradigm shift. There's no question about that. You are a coach, right? You coach people okay.
Yes.
So you probably know this. And I'm kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit. Nobody gets this in their first meeting with Nate or Chelsea or Kyle or Ben, anybody on the team. Nobody gets it right away. They are like, no, no, no. I want to retire at 49. Like, okay. So we write financial plans, and the whole purpose of this plan, well, there's really two main purposes. One is to just make sure you're checking all the boxes, like you're getting all the tax breaks you can,
Right.
you're investing appropriately for your goal. But what I have found that is that after a few years, and we meet with everybody multiple times a year, and I'm sort of prodding, I'm sort of carefully entering into this water with them, like, hey, are you sure this is what you want? And by about year 2 or 3, they are like run ragged, and they are in a meat grinder at work. And they're
Yeah.
like, I don't know how long I can do this. And I'm like, if you're in a meat grinder, are you going to, imagine your hand is in the meat grinder. Are you going to push harder, or are you going to like pull that thing out and find something else? And so what ends up happening is that over years of, I hate using this word, but it is what it is. Over years of counseling, um, they essentially realize that there are better options for them out there. And once they realize that there is another route, that's when they can actually start to imagine a different life. Like they can't even imagine it. They think this is the
Yeah.
best job I'm going to get. I'm staying here, and we call it the golden handcuffs or the velvet prison cell, whatever you want to call it. Um, Once they start to realize that there are jobs out there that they can get where the people are um, kind to them, and they understand that they're young physicians with the family. And yeah, they might make a little less, but their life's going to be a lot better. I This week alone, I probably had 3 calls with physicians. One, they're going on a sabbatical to Europe for a year, and they're like, I mean, I know you're going to hate this. I'm like, I love this. I love this. They're like, well, we can't retire at 55. I'm like, you were never gonna. You don't know how not to work. Like, so, okay, well, we're going to be spending like 200 grand. You literally have the cash. We can pile this into an account. You can retire a year early, or you can literally take that year right now. And I'm like, this is fantastic. But they had to come up with this on their own. Imagine if I told them to do that
Yeah.
from on the right out of the gate. And this is a few years in, you know.
Yeah.
And so, kind of the good thing is that when you're young and naive, you save a lot of money, you know? So they get ahead and they
Yeah.
get set up, and then they have a nice little base. And then at that point, once they feel like, okay, I'm making progress on these loans, I have a house, we got a couple of kids that we're now spending time with. Maybe this makes sense. Maybe I can retire at the ripe old age of 60. I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm retiring in my 70s. If it is I'm retiring when my this company kicks me out. Like when I'm so old that like they're like, you're no good anymore. Thanks for your service.
Yeah. You're no
So
good to us.
yeah, exactly. Find a job where you would love to be there for a long time
Yeah.
and work less
Yeah.
if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, I'm 60. I'm going to be 61
Mm,
next week. And I mean, this is my retirement, right? I'm just doing what I love to do. I've got this
exactly.
cool, everything I do is for fun. Everything I do is for my own personal um, enrichment. And it doesn't matter at any given day, like what, if I do something that doesn't pay me any money, or if I do something that doesn't pay me very much money, it doesn't really matter because
Hmm.
that's not what it's about, right? I'm not,
Right.
that's what it means to me to be retired. Like I can just
Yes.
do, if I want to go somewhere or do something or get involved in some kind of a nonprofit type of thing, all those things are okay because,
Hmm.
the money thing is taking care of itself. So
And Christine, like I am well aware that what you just described requires money, right? I mean, I'm talking to people who make good money. And so some people can't do that. Some people do have to spend the first 20 years making some money. Um, but the difference is for many of your audience and most of the families that I serve, they do have money and they just don't realize it because you get used to is whatever money you have, and all of a sudden you're
right.
comparing yourself to the next level of wealth and the next level, and it's never enough. So these plans that we write, I don't think I ever finished that thought. These plans that we write, it really what it is defining enough. So you
Yes,
come in
exactly.
and you're well on your way to retirement, and this happens regularly. We have an extra $100,000. What do we do with it? And I'm like, how much are you working? How much are you working? Like, and they're, and if as long as they say they're happy at work, then it's like, well, you're on track for your long-term goals. You're invested appropriately, so on track for retirement. In fact, you're ahead. Mark's doing great. You're on track for college. You're paying cash for everything, and you know, they are oftentimes surprised that a financial advisor will tell them to pay off debt, right? But with the way we charge, we does it make us more money if they invest more? So it's all results driven. Like, why don't you spend it? Like, huh? What? Spend it? Like, let's talk about how you could spend this money. And that's just weird to them.
Yeah.
And so and then other times it's we should invest it, but these plans give you direction. You have defined enough. And the key here is in um why we're in such kind of close communication with people about this is that if you have not actually defined enough, like again, I was speaking with a dermatologist last week, and I'm like, okay, so you have an extra $100,000 and you're on track for retirement. I'm like, so do you like you said you want to retire at 55? And he's like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, what's the point of this plan? This plan is supposed to tell you what to do with your money. and you're just like shooting for the moon. Like maybe I'll land there. Like no, we can actually get wherever you want to go. So we chose a new goal, and it revealed to him that he could move to a city he wanted to move to with his family because his child was off to college, was about to leave off to college. It revealed to him that he didn't have to play politics anymore. He could go work locums. I mean, as long as you, as a physician, as long as you keep your credentials wet, you could, most of these people can go make enough money to like live on without saving, without, you know, paying for childcare and all that. So yeah, these plans are vitally important. The problem is that most people in this industry use them as a sales tool. So, you know, when I was at the bank, if a financial plan came out, it was to sell you something. And but for us, it's really important to know like what is this money for and how much is enough for you. We also don't plan generally, unless it's impossible not to give away large inheritances. Like because we don't, I mean, what do you want your child to wait for you to die? Like they can't wait.
Give them an incentive.
Yeah, we don't want that. So yeah, a reasonable inheritance, mainly that represents enough money to last you a lifetime. So when money's left over, it's not because you wanted your children to have a bunch of cash. It's because that's what was appropriate to make sure you didn't outlive your money.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so all I can say is that my audience may not be listening, but um, if I just can't stress enough how important it is to get down and really think about how much is enough and focus on that. And that's all you have to focus on. You don't have to build more wealth than that. We're not, you know, there's
Well,
no
one of the
prize.
things that you're, sorry,
Go ahead.
one of the things that you're sort of touching on without we haven't actually said it in plain English is the difference between a certified financial planner
Hmm.
and, your regular person who's working at wherever,
Uh,
Ameripraise or wherever, some place where they're incented by how much
yeah,
they can sell you, right?
sure.
They're not paid by you per se. I mean, they are, of course, but
Hmm.
they're getting a commission basically on everything that you invest. So their
Yeah,
motives, although they may care just as much about you, they can't remove themselves from the way that they are incented. They can't remove themselves from the way that they get paid. So do you want to
yeah.
just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I will. And so certified financial planner actually uh it does not mean it doesn't really have anything to do with the way you charge. Most certified financial planners are asset-based managers, so they make 1% off of whatever you invest.
Well, but isn't it, it's a fiduciary responsibility?
Even fiduciaries can charge
Okay.
1%.
Okay.
And that's what's the ugly thing about this industry, honestly. And I sometimes I hate that I love being a financial planner so much because, I'm grouped in with a lot of nastiness. But yeah, you can charge 1%, you can be a certified financial planner, and you can still charge just crazy fees. And for those people charging 1%, they love fire people. They love them because they just invest every nickel they can. And so, when you charge on a flat monthly fee, like I mean, and it's pretty uncommon. I mean, we do have several people that kind of, I guess, competitors, but they're good people that do this. And if you can find someone like that, really all you're up against is, are they going to do a good job because you pay them a flat monthly fee no matter what you do? So you really have to know that they care about your results. Otherwise, they'll just keep collecting. But you'll probably just fire them if they don't care about you. So it's really not a big worry. But when you're an asset manager and someone says they want to retire at 55, you shut your mouth right away and say yes. Yes. Invest more. Live less. Who needs your kids? It's like and then to me, it's just been such a blessing to be on a team that's like really just bad salespeople. They just, nobody here really is into that, so we get to talk about the meaningful things. But as far as certified financial planner, again, that it doesn't have anything to do with the way you charge, but to me, it's important because you look at someone's life holistically. That's what I got from my studying. I mean, a lot of the technical things, again, are you can either get that from a lot of experience, or you can, spend a few years of your life studying for this difficult test. But it's planning at its finest. So planning for college, planning estate planning, planning for retirement with all the like sound strategies, understanding how to invest. But again, that to me is table stakes, especially if you have, um, if you have a decent net worth, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to kind of cut out anybody that's not a certified financial planner because, the people that I worked with at the bank, they might be in there with 1 year experience, you know. So that's dangerous. Those people sometimes they're well-meaning, but they are dangerous. They have not
They
seen
don't know what they
everything.
don't know.
No. And you know what? I can say for myself too, it was incredibly beneficial to join someone who had been in the industry for 25 years because I got told these stories. We have one family, they have more money than they could ever spend, even if they took it all out and put it in their checking account. Like they have $10 million dollars and they spend $70,000 a year. You're like, you literally would have to, I mean, I don't know what you would have to do to spend all this money. And so I heard about them like, wow, they must be just living it up. And he said she went back to work last year. I'm like, what? Why? Because she loves being a doctor. She just loves it. Now, she doesn't play any politics and she works on her own terms and she loves it. But, you know, it was when I heard that story in my, early in my career, I started paying attention to these people who wanted to achieve what she had. And then when she got there, it wasn't what she thought.
Yeah.
So it takes a few years for them to really grasp that, but that's okay. We got time.
So is that what kind of things are you going to cover on your new YouTube channel?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's going to be the same stuff, but you get to see my radio face. Um, and so, yeah, I think it'll be good. A lot of people, I've learned that, I'm a visual person, but a lot of people on our team aren't. Um, and so we've been phone calls and basically broadcasting over our podcast with just our voices. But a lot of people love to see your face. And I'm the same. Like if I listen to a podcast and I have the option, I'll listen to it on YouTube. But I hope that it just reaches more people. Um, yeah, and the cool thing would be I feel like if we start more channels, that we'll just get more questions from people. And the great thing is that there are, for at least for material, there are newly minted physicians every year that have similar questions. So um, I'm just waiting for the same questions to stop being asked, but they just keep getting asked. So we keep answering them, and that's what you'll
Yeah.
see on YouTube.
So Nate, how can people reach out to you if they have a question? If they're physicians and they have questions and they like what they've been hearing throughout this conversation, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. You can, so we have a website, physicianfamily.com. And if you want to interview us, you can go there. You can find our podcast there too. Or you can send us an email at podcast@physicianfamily.com.
Okay, great. Hey, I just thought of an idea when you were thinking about, you said you didn't interview people for your podcast, but you could actually interview clients. If you could,
I,
you could have them ask the question and then you could sort of, it just could be kind of fun to get another face on there if you want to.
we've interviewed one client and it was a blast. And it's like my dream to have like success stories and even people talking about kind of the struggles but it's hard to get a hold of doctors. I can barely get them to show up for their annual progress check. So, but if a client is listening, I would love to have you on. I would just love it.
Well, the other thing is people are shy, right? They're just like, oh, I
Yes.
don't want
Yeah.
to be.
So true. I know. I mean, I was shy the first couple times on a podcast. I'm like, I'm gonna stink on this thing. And then everyone reminded me, no one's gonna be listening. It's your first episode.
Don't worry, no
Yeah.
one's going to listen
Yeah.
anyway. Oh, that's reassuring.
Yeah. But now they are. So I could understand people being shy.
Awesome. Nate, thank you so much for being with us today. I've loved talking to you, but I want to ask you now the big question. What is something that you wish I would have asked you, something that we didn't touch on that you really want to make sure people know?
Hmm. I I don't know if I wish you would have asked me this, but sometimes I am surprised by this, which is I call it like the FOMO investing. So you know, things like Bitcoin, things like I've gotten GameStop questions, when that was going crazy a couple years ago. Um, and uh, Basically investing in general. And I believe that for people who make a good living, that they don't have to focus on that, and they can just completely separate themselves from having to chase crazy investments. You can take time, battle tested investment strategies, still make very reasonable returns. And if you know what enough is, you don't need those things. And I have all these reasons why maybe those are bad investments. But the cool thing is, you don't actually have to know, because risk is something that you shouldn't take lightly. And going off, especially for physicians, you don't have to go down a road like that. Like, you can take the beaten path, which is not something most of us get to do. Like, Christine, I'm sure you didn't get to do that. Like, there's not a lot of real estate investors, entrepreneurs, like they have to go down a road that nobody can pave for them. But
Yeah, no
for
blue chip stocks for me.
Yes, exactly. But for a lot of people, that is perfectly reasonable. And if it can get the job done and you understand what is enough and you don't have to do more than that, there is nothing wrong with it. Yeah, you're taking less risk and you might get less return, but you also have a much higher likelihood of not completely losing all your money.
Yeah,
So
not having
yeah,
to
I think
sweat it when you hear the market's doing something like, "Oh my God, am I
ex
broke? What happened?"
exactly. So this comes down to you know, knowing how much you need can free you from the worry of investing and of money. And you don't have to be a bright individual in the investment world, because everyone I work with is extremely bright, but maybe they don't know anything about investing, to live the life you want to live.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. Even if you're not a physician and you're listening to this podcast, I bet you know a physician, and I bet that they would really appreciate it if you would share this with them. And also, Nate has shared some wisdom that just goes across all professions. So share this episode with somebody who you like, who you think would enjoy a meaningful conversation, and make sure that you join us again next week.